General Langley, you're recognized.
Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Smith, distinguished committee members, it's an honor to appear here today representing the outstanding service members, civilians, and families of the United States Africa Command. As I get closer to the end of my tenure of command, I remain in awe of the character and the capabilities of the men and women willing to serve our nation. Our team of soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, guardians, and civilians perform valiantly, and I'm honored and proud to serve with them. America remains in good hands. I'm proud to testify with my friend General Eric Kurilla, the commander of United States Central Command, and my colleague, Ms. Catherine Thompson from OSD Policy. I'd like to extend my gratitude for their steadfast cooperation. Now, ordinarily, I would be joined by my command senior enlisted leader, Sergeant Major Michael Woods. However, as all of our outstanding NCOs do, Sergeant Major Woods has chosen to put himself in the best position to influence operations. Today, he's in Morocco for the African Senior Enlisted Leaders Conference. Now, Morocco is a shining example of a great return on our investment. And their efforts in developing the enlisted corps across the continent is a crucial step in African military professionalism. I recently traveled to Morocco. I attended the African Lion 2025. This exercise is the largest exercise with participation of over 52 nations, 10 NATO allies, and 2 non-NATO allies, and over 10,000 soldiers participating. I also just returned from Kenya, where we jointly hosted the African Chiefs of Defense Conference in Nairobi. This gathering showcased the Kenyan Defense Force's commitment to fostering military dialogue and demonstrated their leadership. The insights drawn from that forum will help inform AFRICOM's approach to hearing how our African partners are solving challenges in their own neighborhoods and understanding where they can shoulder more of the load. Now, everything we do at the United States AFRICOM, especially these types of partnerships, has overarching goal in mind: achieving peace through strength. Now, this requires 3 things: a clear understanding of national security threats, a robust and dependable network of like-minded allies and partners, and appropriate resourcing to match military requirements. Now, as I've said in previous testimony, Africa remains a nexus theater from which the United States cannot afford to shift its gaze. It is home to terrorists who take advantage of conditions in Africa to grow and export their ideology. ISIS controls their global network from Somalia. It is where the Chinese Communist Party actively works to change the international rules-based order and establish regional hegemony. And it's where the Russian Federation seizes opportunities created by chaos and instability. Ladies and gentlemen, we must deter these nations and other malign actors from their goals on the continent. Many of our security and economic interests overlap with those of our African and European partners. Successful outcomes enabled by burden sharing are beneficial for all. As a posture-limited theater, we establish strength and work towards peace by enhancing security capabilities of our African partners through our robust system of alliances. Exercises, training events, security cooperation, and foreign military sales programs are the backbone of our military activities on the continent. Through these activities, our forces lead by example with a warrior ethos and stand by our partners and enhance trust in the United States military. United States AFRICOM seeks to match capabilities with current and emerging threats to ensure that security of our forces while advancing American interests. Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft, crisis response forces, counter-unmanned aerial systems technology, and integrated air missile defense platforms are critical resources to accomplish our mission. I welcome your advocacy in ensuring that these necessary tools are in AFRICOM's hands. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I'd like to close by thanking the committee for your stalwart support during my tenure of command. Our ability to accomplish the mission is always linked to your advocacy and encouragement, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General Langley. Chair now recognizes himself for questions. General Langley, your command was created in 2007 to address the shortcomings of the division of Africa between CENTCOM, INDOPACOM, and EUCOM. Since then, Africa's strategic importance has only grown, with transnational terrorism on the rise, as well as China and Russia working to undermine our interest on the continent. Can you tell me, in your best military judgment, should AFRICOM remain its own combatant command separate and apart from EUCOM?
Chairman, those statistics that you just stated is more of a reason why AFRICOM needs to remain as a overall command to be able to address these challenges. Africa is a nexus theater for the great power competition, and then also with a number of violent extremist organizations that are encroaching upon the continent. It is a threat. It is a threat to our homeland, and it's a threat for our overall national security and protection of our national interests.
Yeah. I take that as a yes.
Yes, Chairman.
Yes, and I fully agree with you. I made it very clear publicly that I will vigorously oppose any effort to consolidate AFRICOM into EUCOM. As you heard in my opening statement, we need to be putting more resources in AFRICOM to combat what China and Russia and Iran are doing, rather than looking at taking away attention and resources.
General Langley, there's a lot of concerning aspects to Africa, but West Africa right now seems to be the most concerning. I mean, it's the most capable terrorist organization is, gaining influence in multiple countries and threatening others. We don't have much of a presence there. What would be your recommendation in terms of how we contain that threat that is growing out of West Africa?
Ranking member, I would say, since we moved out of Niger, we had to reset our CT strategy. And that's further engagement, especially with the coastal West Africa countries who are building capabilities and capacity to deter. And a number of countries is working, but JNM, which is and AQIM, and also ISIS Sahel are really starting to get their footing and affect themselves across the Sahel, AES countries of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. I think that just collaboration with our partners in increasing institutional capacity for enduring solution against those aforementioned VEOs. To do that, it takes a whole of government approach, not so much our whole of government, but their whole of government, and we need to invest in that.
General Langley, I know you have a lot of positive things to say about Morocco, and I do as well, as they were the first country to recognize the United States independence, and it seems like their alliance is increasing with us. Do you ever envision moving the headquarters of AFRICOM from Germany to an African partner country like Morocco?
Congressman, thanks for that question. And as I would look at it from the operational perspective, cost-benefit analysis, the benefit of moving to Morocco would not exceed the cost. The benefit operationally of us being able to operate from Stuttgart headquarters onto it does not benefit in amount. The cost of moving the headquarters would be a big dent to our budget. So I would say from a cost analysis perspective, I think we are advantageous where we are right now. When we look at the overall costs, we would not be benefiting from moving our headquarters onto the African continent at large. But let me just say, Morocco is a great partner, and what they do in exporting security is tremendous, especially in the sub-Saharan countries.
Very good. Chairman, I yield back.
General Langley is not crucial to our national security, is turning our backs on our allies, like we've seen from the administration, and cutting essential foreign assistance programs that go hand in hand with our efforts to promote strong U.S. global leadership. China and Russia have made significant military and economic inroads across the African continent, posing serious implications for U.S. strategic interests At the same time, the Trump administration, under the guise of pursuing efficiency, has slashed funding for global development and humanitarian programs. These cuts have, in practice, created greater inefficiencies and undermined U.S. influence abroad. How does U.S. economic aid, how does U.S. economic and humanitarian engagement on the continent contribute to advancing AFRICOM's military objectives, particularly when it comes to countering the destabilizing influence of Russia and China?
Congressman, thanks for that question. And I'll just go back on the operations, especially the operations that we do in Somalia. So when we support the Somali National Army, as they've gone through numerous phases to the liberation phase of significant regions across Somalia, they get into phase 4. And some of the capabilities that outside of the kinetics and military operations, they were able to stabilize the region. So we're at a point now looking forward to what worked as far as aid in the past, but this is where the Secretary has charged me with engaging other countries of a shared burden. A shared burden on looking at contributing countries, not only troop contributing, but also in phase 4 operation, which is stabilization. So those discussions are taking place at a higher level, at the policy level, and engagement with other countries, so that we can focus, laser focus on countering terrorism and a shared burden with other countries to be able to take up that void.
General Langley, same question to you. Does this make achieving the military objectives more or less difficult?
Especially in the MISO, we just, as far as our information operations, countering some of the propaganda that the CCP is putting out there. Yes, that's where we need to be able to confront them, because we had a lot of success in the past, and even going forward, Secretary Hicks has given us the tools to press back on the CCP.
So thank you, General Langley. I heard yes, which I think is the short answer to the question, and I just
there's
want to
things
make sure
that we need to counter them.
Thank you.
In your testimony, you mentioned that the U.S. approach to Africa is African partner-led, U.S. and ally-enabled. General Langley, in your view, which African partners are the most important to furthering U.S. interests on the continent, and why?
Congressman, thanks for that question. And it's a broad question, but as far as China is concerned and their aspirations to become a global hegemon, I'll just give a statistic that's pretty compelling. They're outspending AFRICOM militarily 100-to-1. So as they have basing aspirations across the globe, but especially in Africa, in those places, whether it's on the east side or the west side, they're trying to close the gap from a geostrategic positioning to be able to stop our joint forces for employing across the globe, or A2AD, in which aerial denial, anti-access. And then also their critical minerals, trying to control those supply chains. So those geostrategic ways of affecting their geopolitical means to engage with a number of countries. It's too many to state.
Sure, I appreciate that. And then, with U.S. engagement with certain African countries being either cooled or stalled entirely, General Langley, why is continued engagement with those African countries that are still engaged with the U.S. so essential for our national security?
Absolutely, because some of these countries we have shared interests in, and we see it as essential for the purposes of the shared commitment of stability and security across the region, not only for counterterrorism, but just for international rules-based order. A number of these countries see the importance of that, and that's why we have shared national security objectives, so they can get to the future of being able to stand on their own and be able to create prosperity across the future. And a number of countries side with the United States in our ways to do it.
Thank you. General Langley, you mentioned in your opening that Morocco is an example of success from our investment. Was hard power the sole tool we deployed for that success? And generally, do you believe that hard power is the only tool we have to further U.S. interest in Africa?
It's a portfolio of a number of powers, you know, whole government, building institutional capacity, having the African countries take a lead and share with one another as a whole has proven to be the success against a number of layered threats that are stalling progress across the African continent.
That's right, and we need to be thinking about all levers of power, including the soft power tools at our disposal when looking to counter Chinese influence, deter further adversarial military expansion, and to protect access to critical minerals on the continent. In fact, that is why I plan on voting against a rescission package on the House floor this week that rescinds bilateral and multilateral investment in places like Africa.
General Langley, you're a Marine, right? And then the Marine hymn from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, right? Tripoli, that's Libya. And we went to war with them because the Barbary pirates were kidnapping our citizens. Thomas Jefferson did not want to do that, but he did. And other nations were paying tribute to these pirates, and we said enough, right? So I'd like to gently remind some of my colleagues that sit over there, if they actually did their homework and read the rescissions packages that are proposed by the Trump administration, we're removing what can really reasonably be titled 21st century tribute. So we're going to be assisting our African partners, our Middle East partners, but we're not paying tribute anymore. Those days are over. And you're in that uniform because we stopped paying tribute back then. So I can forward the package to anybody over there if you actually want to read it instead of just complaining.
Maybe we can work together with that. Anyway, next question. What we're seeing around the world is that allies are regarding the United States as an increasingly uncertain partner as we impose and then remove unilateral tariffs, consider cutting active duty and foreign assistance programs, and discuss using military force to take the territory of other nations like Greenland. I believe that we are made safer through our alliances and that making our alliances doubt our resolve makes us less strong. That is particularly true in Africa, where China has made long-term efforts through various initiatives. Meanwhile, the new administration muses publicly about terminating AFRICOM. General Langley, can you describe in general terms the concerns you have heard from our African allies and security partners about this potential administration policy change and the impact it would have on our nation's security and economic resource requirements?
Congressman, I was in Nairobi last week, and I would just say the message from the Secretary of Defense by the chiefs of defense across Africa was well received. They get that they need to be able to provide their own security. They get that they do not need to be dependent on us anymore. There's things that they think that they can share in the burden, and they are ready to shift, such as countries like Morocco and Tunisia and Kenya. But there's others also in that as well. So they articulate what they need to push to that level. But at this point here, I think everything is positive, that they need to be able to take on their own security for Africa to prosper writ large.
Here's to General Langley. We've touched on in this hearing the very real nexus between our longstanding humanitarian efforts and investments in Africa to build allies, and at the same time the very real threat China poses, particularly to naval progress, but also the extraction of those rare earth minerals that are critical to national defense. All of that related to national security and your role. Over the last 6 years, the terrorist organization JNIM has seen dramatic growth in activities. You recently gave remarks emphasizing that the U.S. was focused on helping African nations build the self-reliance to fight such terrorists, but it was reported that the vast majority of programs run through the Global Fragility Act, a multi-year initiative intended to bolster stability in vulnerable West African countries, has been shut down by this administration. Can you please speak to the threat of JNIM to the region and its stability?
Congresswoman, thanks for the question. Yes, the epicenter of JNIM right now lies within the countries of Mali and Burkina Faso and to some degree Niger. But it's threatening of the former GFA recipient states. I've met in Cote d'Ivoire with Ambassador Davis Vaugh, and the thing in the past, they have been able to benefit of being able to share ways ahead for counterterrorism. So in their northern regions of the southern regions of Burkina Faso, the northern regions of Cote d'Ivoire, they've been very effective with the construct they've established. So yeah, they benefited from their whole of government, and I think the GFA had been an enabler for that in the past. But going forward, they know that with the straight talk that we have already said that we need to share this burden. And Burkina Faso we've offered them other opportunities to be able to benefit with what Cote d'Ivoire has been successful at. So it's a sharing of ideas and sharing of the enduring solution to counterterrorism, which all of those countries can benefit from.
General Langley, I'll start with you and then move east. Regarding the DRC and Rwanda, could you give me kind of an update, not necessarily a history, but where you see things as they stand today with that conflict?
Yes, at the cusp of it, at the central piece of it, is the encroachment of M23 forces into the DRC, eastern DRC. They've been very successful in their offensive operations, going all the way down to South Kivu. This encapsulates some of the regions that are rich in critical minerals. Just at the diplomatic realm, I won't speak to that piece, but I know that Rwanda is allegedly supporting. At the diplomatic realm, I won't speak to that piece, but I know that Rwanda is allegedly supporting the M23. And then President Tshisekedi in DRC is trying to get his forces set so they can counter this. So that's all in the diplomatic realm. SADC, a number of regional constructs in Southern Africa are trying to solve this problem and trying to come to a truce where we can affect peace. Over.
Well, we would consider both countries to be friends of ours, I believe, so it's tricky in that sense. But in your mind, what needs to happen to wrap this conflict up and bring peace to the region?
From an operational perspective, like I said, this is mainly in the diplomatic realm, so I have to defer to the State Department.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman, for that question. And from my perspective, in an operational sense, I look at it as supporting 3 different combat commanders to include CENTCOM in their globally integrated plan against their foe, especially Iran, and then even EUCOM in their global plan as well as INDOPACOM. And on this map here that you see the strategic choke points, as far as AFRICOM and what we're charged to do in supporting those respective combat commanders in support of their global plans is to be able to keep us at phase zero of deter, and being able to deter and keep free flow of commerce and freedom of action around us. So we work through our partners, a number of countries across the Maghreb for that end. Every exercise has that teed up as far as a objective to how we do that with shared objectives, shared intel, and common objectives, I should say, with other countries. And that's an enabler for us in my support plans to those respective combatant commanders.
General Langley, in regards to AFRICOM, it seems as if Russia more or less has Africa landlocked. When I'm looking at the map here, can you give me a kind of a high-level briefing when it comes to Tunisia, Algeria, and Libya, the northern part of Africa? If you roll the clock back maybe a decade, that seems to be the best place you could hide in plain sight, especially in the northern point of Tunisia, with the vastness of the desert. Are we seeing anything happening, developing in the northern part of Africa? Because it seems as if we are centrally kind of focused on where all the rare earth minerals are being mined.
Congressman, that's a great question. And I've always been, through my tenure of command, the last 3 years, engaging with all these countries. to the degree as we look at this is NATO's southern flank. And I see those strategic choke points on there. We need freedom of navigation or freedom of action for our ships in support of those war plans for NATO and for EUCOM. So I've been working overtime and engaging with these countries. Morocco's doing their part, and even Algeria, which in some realms that we disagree on some things, but Algeria, we were able to sign a non-binding agreement in cooperation. But I will tell you that Russia is still there. They're still trying to effect an agreement on their own so they can get basing access or port access. And as you even go down into Libya, you know, I met with Field Marshal Haftar almost two times, engaging them to ensure that we can work with them because we have shared threats, especially along their southern borders of terrorism. Just engaging with both sides, trying to get collective agreement in Libya between the GNU and the LNA. That is essential that we keep U.S. diplomatic agreements and cooperation with these countries because we see what Russia's trying to do, establish some ports across the Mediterranean, warm water ports, so that it'll affect their operations, try to get a decisive advantage. But we're not going to let that happen in phase zero coherency operations that we do in AFRICOM.
Thank you. Ms. Thompson, I have nothing for you today.
We're leaving a void for Russia and for the PRC to fill. And you've been quoted as saying that the PRC is replicating what we have done in Africa, targeting the International Military Education and Training Program that they also said they're going to increase security and training in a number of countries. In April, it was reported that Cairo and the PRC were planning to participate in a joint exercise between their air forces. As the administration continues to pull back and the PRC continues to build relations, what, in your opinion, is the national security risk and impact to Africa as well as to us here at home?
I'd say the CCP is trying to replicate what we do, what we've done in the past, and have a strategic advantage, and especially engaging with our African partners. Because they want to be able to establish an enabler to close the decisive gap that we've had over them for years. I'll just go into maritime sense, especially with their NETF, which is their Naval Expeditionary Task Force. They go around the periphery of the African continent, engaging with a number of countries. We need to be able to get that. You brought up, your naval background. You know, when we had the ARG Muse, we're not heel to toe anymore. Mm-hmm. We're not 3.0. We do need the amphibious readiness group and the Marine expeditionary units out there on ships. That is a force multiplier for crisis response or any other show of deterrence. I'd say, that's not. That doesn't go across political lines. That goes in operational lines. Navy, as I met with the Vice Admiral in their operation sense, but also met with Admiral Kilby and also Stuart Munch, and they are bringing up the capability to try to provide Africa with that capability so that we can compete with China, especially in the maritime sense. So I would say that one step in the right direction is getting those ARG Muse back out there and in the AFRICOM theater.
All right, Gator Navy, all the way.
General Langley, I'll start with you. The Djibouti air base cluster is within striking distance of some of the Houthi weapons, and I was wondering, especially with the development of drones that have been developed in Iran and put together in Yemen, what are we doing for countermeasures, and do you think we could do better? How can we assist you in equipping our bases with countermeasures for those advanced drones and what they're trying to develop?
Congressman, it's an evolving threat, especially with the Houthis on the other side of the Red Sea. And I will get into the specifics of what we actually need to improve upon, enhance upon. We're protected now, but I will get into specifics in closed session of things that I think that we can continue to enhance and evolve in that, because it's not just Djibouti; it's all the way down to Manda Bay in Kenya. So I will say that it is evolving. The Houthis are gaining in capability. And then there's other illicit actors in the region that can be a threat within East Africa writ large.
Would you say that it's safe to assume that we have a ways to go to be secure in our endeavors?
We will always do position improvement. You know, our fighting holes always need to be improved for force protection. That's my #1 mission, is protecting the troops on the ground.
General Langley, I first want to discuss our strategy in Somalia. Under your leadership, the United States has rapidly increased the pace of airstrikes against both al-Shabaab and ISIS Somalia. In the past 5 months alone, the U.S. has conducted 37 strikes compared to just 4 during the entire first year of the Biden administration. That's actually nearly as many as President Trump authorized in his first year, which totaled 39. So could you first tell me what is the objective of these airstrikes?
Congresswoman, this is one of the #1 objectives of Secretary Hegseth came in when he became the Secretary of Defense. He said AFRICOM needs to do counterterrorism operations to protect the homeland. Up there in the Golis Mountains, you have ISIS Somalia. They have the propensity to affect the homeland, whether it be global financing. We had to stop that. You know, we did have an operation back in 2023, but ISIS Somalia has grown. As a matter of fact, the emir is there now. They've only increased their capability and capacity. That's why we had to turn up the heat on putting pressure through lethal means to be able to attract that.
I understand the threat. I guess what I'm concerned about is that we've been using this same logic for decades. It doesn't seem like it's attached to any ability for us to eventually leave. And we saw that, for instance, in 2019, when there was expanded airstrikes, that it didn't actually translate to fewer al-Shabaab attacks in Somalia. So are these airstrikes part of a coherent, articulated strategy aimed at enabling long-term stability and ultimately drawing down the U.S. military footprint?
Yes, that's our operational intent right now, to be able to cease or deter their ability for ex-ops to protect the homeland.
Okay.